All right, so remember that this is something we want to look out for, is that whenever we start to do these things, one of the things you want to see, and this is with factoring with anything, if you can ever divide by a common factor, then you should, because that'll kind of clear things out. So notice here, there's something I can divide everything by, which is what?
2.
Okay, let's divide by 2 to make our lives easier.
Mr. Hart, how do you know when to divide or subtract?
Well, in this case, I noticed that whenever you can divide something on both sides of a fraction, the only reason I can do this is because of this. You can do the same thing to all sides, no matter what. In this case, I knew that when I divide it by 2, everything will get smaller. And when things are smaller, they make my life easier, right? Big numbers suck. They're hard to work with. So I end up here. Now, you would still end up in the same place, just with more work if you did it the other way. So let's talk about this. Right now, we have this, x squared plus 4x. We can either move that 6 over, or we can move it over and see if we can factor it, or we could try it like this. Why did I leave that gap there?
So you could do 4 over 2 and then square it.
Take 4, divide it by 2, and then square it. What is half of 4? Okay, now again, I'm going to keep highlighting this because remember that in case you never know what it factors into, that's what it's going to factor into. So 2 squared is 4. So I'm adding 4 to both sides. So when you factor it, again, if you're not sure what the number that goes with the x, just look up there. It's 2 plus 2 plus 2. 2 times 2 is 4. 2 plus 2 is 4. And then we get is equal to 6 plus 4, which is 10. What's my next step?
X plus 2 squared equals 10. And then square root it. And then x plus 2 equals plus and minus square root 10. And the square, you don't have a square root. Wait, is it by 2? No, you don't have a square root of 10.
Okay, we can't do the square root of 10.
So it was minus 2 plus and minus square root of 10. I mean, minus 2 plus and minus square root.
Good. We're going to do, I haven't even seen it yet, but going on I go, yep, same thing. Now the only thing I need to be careful of here is this. Yeah.
So wouldn't you add 2 and then subtract 9?
Yeah, so here's exactly what she said, and we'll talk about why. It is the x's that need to be on the left-hand side, not the whole number that needs to be there. Remember, we're leaving a gap for a whole number. So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to add 2, and I'm going to do this in more steps than probably it needs to be, equals 9x plus 2. That's adding 2 to both sides. Then I'm going to subtract 9x, and we get x squared minus 9x. Now there's that gap is equal to 2, because it's this one, the one with the x, that we have to take half of. If you had taken half of 2, this wouldn't have worked out. So what am I going to do next?
Negative 9x divided by 2.
Okay, not negative 9x divided by 2, but just negative 9 divided by 2 squared. And now, how am I going to go about squaring that?
We're going to square root the 9.
Good, we're going to square each of them. We're going to square the top and square the bottom.
It would be 81 over 4.
Okay, so watch as I highlight what was inside there. Because in a moment, this is going to look ugly again. And we dealt with the same number yesterday. So I'm adding 81 fourths to both sides. Okay, so on the left, when you go to factor this is usually where the people who don't know this trick flip out, because they're like, how the heck am I supposed to factor 81 fourths, like two numbers that multiply to give me 81 fourths that add to give me negative 9. But what is that number that does that?
Negative 2. Or negative 9.
That's the whole reason we highlight it right there. The number is negative 9 halves. On every single time, whatever was in, like the simplified version of whatever was inside, if it was 6 over 2, then it ended up as being 3. In this case, negative 9 over 2 does not simplify. It's just negative 9 over 2.
But if it's simplified evenly,
We do, yep. And that's, yep. Okay, now we need to add these two things, but we can't add them because they don't have the same denominators. So what should I do? Good, we're going to multiply this one over here by 4 on the top and bottom because that will make it into fourths. So this becomes 8 fourths, which is still the same as 2. 8 fourths plus 81 fourths is equal to? 89 fourths. Okay, so our next line is going to look like this. X minus 9 halves squared is equal to 89 fourths. What's next? Square root both sides. Sometimes the answers will get ugly, but you shouldn't be intimidated. You know how to do all the things that we're doing. The left side becomes x minus 9 halves. What does the right side become?
Is equal to the square root of 89 over 2. Plus or minus.
So we get x minus 9 halves is equal to plus or minus the square root of 89 over 2. Now what?
Then you have to kind of break down 89
If we can.
if you can. Try 3.
I'll let you know right now it does not break down. I'll save you that time. We could try all sorts of different things. I'm going to just save you that mess that's not going to break down. So now what?
Plus 9 over 2.
Plus 9 halves. So we get x is equal to 9 halves plus or minus the square root of 89 halves. Now, you might be like, we are done, except for not really. There's something about those two things that makes me feel like there's still something to be done with them. They have the same denominator, so let's just write them with the same denominators. 9 plus or minus the square root of 89, bless you, over 2. They're both over 2, so they can be combined. Yes, you have to do that. It's not finished without. Think about it. If you had 1/2 plus 1/2, that becomes 1 plus 1 over 2, or 2/2, which then becomes 1. But that's the way that we add fractions. In this case, there was nothing that I could do with the adding, but I could combine them into one fraction, which I should do. And then we have one more, and we are done for the day.
This is all the rest of the problems for the homework. It's just like this.
That's it. And actually, these are the same ones we did yesterday, so in theory, you could have finished yesterday, but that was not what your homework was, so. Last but not least, tell me what my first step is going to be.
Divide everything by 3.
They have a common factor of 3, so let's make these things smaller. So we get x squared minus 8x is equal to 9. What's next? Riley, this is the part you were asking about. That becomes -4 squared. Now that it's simplified, notice I highlighted the simplified version before we square it. That's a very important number. -4 squared is?
16.
Positive 16. So positive 16 here, positive 16 here.
So then it's going to be x minus 4, x minus 4.
Good. Is equal to?
5.
You know why I feel really good about these numbers? Take a look at where this is going. Why do I like that ended up as a 25? Because we're going to end up taking the square root. Yeah, in a minute, we all know this pattern. It's going to be a square root in a minute, and I like the square root of 25. X minus 4 squared is equal to 25. Square root both sides, and we get
X minus 4 equals 5.
plus or minus the square root of 25, which, as you said, is 5. So x minus 4 is equal to plus or minus 5. I'm pausing while the door is open.
Plus 4. Both sides. X equals 4 plus or minus 5.
Final answer?
No,
No. Why no?
because you can subtract it and add it.
Because I do know how to add and subtract those two things. 4 plus 5 I know, and 4 minus 5 I know.
Wait, so why wouldn't we do that every time?
because some of them have x's in it, and I don't know how to do
Or like a square root.
or a square root, and I don't know how to do those, but these are very simple to do. 4 plus 5 is, and 4 minus 5 is. So my two answers are 9 and negative 1.
Wait, so if there was an I, you couldn't do that?
Correct. So she's saying, like, if that was 4 plus or minus 5i, then we were done. But 4 plus or minus 5, well, that we can work with. And that, my friends, is it.